founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one God beyond the firm destroyer, perfectly imperfect and fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and pure unruffled, surpassing the law of the world, supreme guide of humanity, intelligent strategic the endowed, transcendent destroyer, destroyer of wonder, the supreme sunshine of love, life experienced from perfect principle of nature, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, all God beyond the firm destroyer, perfectly imperfect and fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and pure without, surpassing the law of the world, supreme guide of human beings, teacher of wealth in human beings, supreme spiritual reformer, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious empowerer, the supreme sanctifier, high prostrator of God, ultimate refuge, the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one God beyond the firm destroyer, perfectly imperfect and fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and pure without, surpassing the law of the world, supreme guide of human beings, teacher of wealth in human beings, supreme spiritual reformer, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious empowerer, the supreme sanctifier, high prostrator of God, ultimate refuge, supreme amongst humans with all goodness, transcendent life and sin, high and supreme in this world, pure, wise, unalterable, pure body, soul, supremely pure, wisdom absolute, golden nature, benevolent in his free will, glorious in holy, high prostrator, the supreme science, Christ-like, spotlessly, childlike love, pure, transparent, mystery-like, infinite transcendental, incomparably Christ-like, true-like, sane and irrepressible, beneficent in all its state, immutable, irredeemable, without vast oceans, infinite volume, ineffable, irremediable, the virtue of grace, wonderful, remarkable, sublime, the downfall of society, spotlessly, merciful, liberated, and causation remarkable liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community, invented virtue, prostrate, homage to the supreme giver, homage to the founder refuge, homage to the great sufferer, to all three every devout homage, to all great heavens, endowed with bodies as many as 4 realms in all aspects, with supreme faith, to not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform any perfect virtuous action, secure immortality, beseeching of Buddha, a star of visual liberation, a lamp, an image, a drop of liquid or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. To page 15 for the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagawan was dwelling amidst the multitude of divine Buddha, together with great community of monks and great heroes and bodhisattvas. At that time the Bhagawan was absorbed in contemplation of the heavens and the abundant form of adoration. Also at that time the bodhisattva monks sat on high above the Shrine, looked upon the very majestic and mighty ocean beyond, and beheld those 5 aggregate the hour of Buddha, the venerable Buddha, saviors, bodhisattvas, Acharya, Ishvara, Ashe, Buddha, practice sages, Brahmanes, Bodhisattvas, Master,
Chitara sambe dushin simala sake chuji chapa pabdu so.
Sanje Shadan Saji Shanan Chanjo Pada Dani Jasan Take Chujin Jive Sanam Ji Tola Penji Sanje Toba Sanje Shadan Saji Shanan Chanjo Pada Dani Jasan Take Chujin Jive Sanam Ji Tola Penji Sanje Toba Sanje Shadan Saji Shanan Chanjo Pada Dani Jasan Take Chujin Jive Sanam Ji Tola Penji Liberation Kange Diseño se dado de Jepama. También tiene de Conan de la Chanteno, Tony Jason de Jevela, Chichi de Kanji Dendo. Chale Bema de Deño, so de Sasha de Lundo Show, but there's a Marambosh and Dagajiro Benediction. But there's a Megon de Gozondo Jumudo de Dozos. I don't know, Kuno Gomji. If you ask what I'm using, Kuno ya watch.
Correcting our intention while by meditating on bodhicitta.
Haya, da, kawo kom ra, kanzo. Antini chanchu sembe lamji, inde jik, kumju chungwa da, tuju chungwa, samludanji chungwa, yawa sangbu yin ten ra.
Now, rejoicing, thinking that being able to hear about the bodhisattva paths, reflect and meditate on them is fortunate. Rejoice in that.
Haya, da anzo di chanchu semba la, yuwa da jis, namjenji she nansi. Namjenji namba shek yorwa, di nani chanchu semba da jis tunba de la sumju zabshi yuwa. A sumju zabshi nani nyembe lam sum do semba, tuwe lam sum do semba. Tonju le dine lam nga do, jikdenbe lam gu ta do semba shek kizing. Jikdenbe lam gu nangi guwa da konyom de la mangbu keja mangbu she son.
Yep.
Ta di rin polam ji, powe lam sadri, polam rindachi ma shi sadri, polam powe lam.
So reminding us where we are in terms of a knower of all aspects, in like or in similitude with how a bodhisattva must train. There are those 34 aspects which are divided sixfold. We've been through the first 4 of these, namely the first path of antidotes, which is threefold, the path of emanation threefold, the paths of abiding happily in the present life, 5. We've just finished supramundane paths, which were 9, 4 and 4 plus 1, 9. Now we're up to the 5th one, paths of abandonment. This is page 66 at the top.
Ta di polam sadi, powe lam sina diri, nyembu lam silam na diri, tinye jikwari rwa.
Yeah. So you could call it path of abandonment or an antidotal path. It is fine.
Ta tangbo dila tanda di ngonye di shekda, nyembu sina kala kora, ta di nyembu sina kala ka yore westi, nyembu sadi chikche, andi ngonye sina kala ka yore westi. Tikanga maji doshana rwa.
Yeah. So in terms of an antidote, what is an antidote? And then what is a direct antidote? Direct, contradictory.
Ta nyembu sila wendu, ranga miduncho jom nuwe, jomba nuwa yu nye chora, ranga miduncho jomje sina rewe, ranga miduncho jomba nuwa yu nye sina rewe, yame na ranga miduncho de pa mewa soya ke chigyoro ko, o dila ya nyembu sikiyoro, nyembu sina.
Antidote generally means it has the power or ability to destroy a non-concordant class. That is it.
Ta lam tamje nyembore, lam tamje nyemboro.
All paths, therefore, are antidotes.
Pena chanju semdi karegi nyembore lawina, chanju semdi ranjinzi rwa, ranjinzi nyembo chago yorwa.
For example, the bodhisattva path is the antidote to self-cherishing.
Cheza midago tobe lo di tanzi nyembo chago ya.
And the mind, the mind realizing impermanence is the direct antidote to grasping at permanent self.
Nyanzo pena jimba tanya ke lamdizo senne ki nyembo sena miduncho sena jomba chigo yunza jimba dizo nyembo chago yorwa.
And if we engage in the valid acts of generosity, they act as direct antidotal paths to miserliness.
Ta ngonye sindu khalago yorsina, ta ngonye sindu ngoyos pe ngelo wade chik lapshana nyembo dila ta tangi shewa najidu chede. Ta nega pena nganzo shine ro shirwa, shine di kisi ngoma ne keja mangwa she tsagre, shine di nyomo ngunjuwa de pena shine tangbo di samde tangbo shine dozo ina, nyedo dozo ina, dewe nyomo ngunjuwa nyembo chagorwa.
Right, so let's talk about the antidotes in a general sense, staying with that for a minute. not going on to the direct antidote, but we can see, we've already talked a lot about shamatha, calm abiding, and how with the branches, they are direct antidotes to the afflictions becoming manifest.
저는 이 셈디야 템보 셈디 템보 차요인데 이 셈디라 녀모 제야게 고갑디 매버차 내갑질러 봐.
So what's happening here is in dependence on the stable recall or the mind stability, if you will. You can stop the afflictions from manifesting temporarily abate them.
다들라 녀보들라 직된베 녀보단 직된렌 데베 녀보 니체베나 페진 세우 셰르도더라.
It might be clearer if we demarcate the antidotes into the the mundane and the transmundane, or the worldly and the transworldly, if you will.
근데 배적하시는 직된베 람세야지 덩그래 어디래 다 직된베.
Yeah, and that's why in some texts we have this wording supermundane path.
제단디 단다 직된베 람기 님보쳐야돼. 내가 메제베 고급 좀 바타가라를 메시지 자원의 방토고요. 변에 신의 토변 되변이모 내가 직계야 그 고급된 운주버지베 제요 말다로 아니냐. 사원의 방토고요 말다.
So when we talk about these worldly paths or mundane paths, what the antidotes are doing is not taking out the affliction from the root or the seeds, but, as we've said, just temporarily subduing them.
당원이스도 가려고 그래서 당원이스야 돼. 단단한서 셔야 돼. 당원이도 시고요. 보면 남셔야 돼. 원이도 시고라. 당원이스도 아니 라르디 메제베 최전데 줘. 빵와사마데 친제 양자 제면조게 소야게 남 님보텔라 아니 원이스고요. 다 두스코나 페진세우 자루다.
Yeah. But when we talk about direct antidotal paths, it's one, a path of abandonment, and secondly, the affliction can no longer occur again. So that's what we mean by direct antidote.
And
then we bring in the two definitions then of the uninterrupted path and then the path of release or liberated path.
데 파제멜랑기 생이디 가려나 테나 랑오게 방절 주위에서 아니 뒤에 응원이 집에 상미시 파제멜랑 생이랍도.
So we've just read the definition of the uninterrupted path as it is in the text. Thus, the definition of an uninterrupted path is an uncontaminated, exalted wisdom that acts as the direct antidote to the obscuration that is its corresponding object of abandonment.
다랑오게 방절 주와서 라비엔디 저는 파제멜랑 베나 통방 파제멜람디나 니 고랑오게 방절 가려 통방데 통방세데 가서는 베나 두데 온게 샤베 니 짐벅군다 요로 디제 차자르 짐벅군다 덴지군다 라캅디란 주엘로잖아 덴지군다 템버도 베나 다 두데 온게 아도다제 스웨션조 줌젠지 온게 스웨션조 게 덴지지요로 어디다 디 사면데 제바티 아니 통랑 파제멜랑 ngoge게 다 ngo게 반자스 코랑게 랭겐데 오시에드레다고
Right. So let's look then at an example of the antidotes in terms of what's being abandoned. So the objects to be abandoned, for example, on the path of seeing on the first level, are these intellectually acquired minds that cling to true existence, and these path of seeing abandonments act as a direct antidote to that.
다 ngöla di pechawe penangzo ngönyen di penangzo pajemelande maja mami dojrero mami ta mami la dangwes kuguyoro ba dangwes kuguyoro dangwes kuguyoinza kogo ngoge pangje ani da de jidang mijing ba pena pögi mami de jamigi maja de ni jami mami de pög mami daro 다디 저저 저러 왔다 간다. 아니 네 파제멜란데 다 망어서 다 등기었다. 뭐서 다 독이었다고.
To give an analogy of these uninterrupted paths that are acting as antidotes to the objects of abandonment. Every military needs an enemy. So, you know, that military has to seek out that enemy and take it out. So in Tibet's case, you know, China would have seen Tibet and had that kind of attitude. That's the example.
다 년부 파제면은디 숙주무면은 니 공어가 반자디 숙주무여나 반토 말봐 제단디 단다 담에 베나다 먼저 풍부라 미게 풍부 덴바도 버진베 덴진저와 데 네 ngoge 반 딘바 데라 줌진 삼노 단저와 두데 온게 줌진 삼노다네 베나 치라마 도데와 도즈이나 데 풍부 덴바도 버레스 라고도 두데 온게와 아니 단다 두저 가서 그래다 이슈당 카제당 힌두당 두저데 고 딱바레 랑중레스로 딱바랑중레 신셰온데 두저 두데 온게 아니 근데 지 담바투었으니 지 셰기여와 디셰디 디 짐베데 아니 단다 디게다 데레 메딘초 모게 방자 데레 대단 디제야게 사면주여와 디니가레 단다 갑델라 뉴바데레 레기여 님도.
Right, so let's give an example. If the uninterrupted path is not strong, then it is unable to act as an antidote to the afflicted mental state. It can't abandon it. So, in that sense, one would say, for example, in terms of the tenant, the various tenant holder with reasons, one will have focused on the aggregates and seen, you know, alluded to them this true existence or of a certain level. For example, Vaibhashika, mind only, and so forth. And one will have done this, gone about this initially with intellectual reasons. But then, if you look at the non-Buddhists, Christian, Islam, and so forth, what naturally arises in their mind is like a kind of a creator or even a permanent notion of a self. And then one clings to it. So clinging to such a notion of an autonomous self would be the object of abandonment here and the seeds together with it.
다디네 맨나 안당도 사제 니월로 풍보데 ngazo 덴바시나네 동에 덴바임바.
Yeah.
아래. 다디게 미그바체네 데라 미베 데게 딩게 동바니 고미운데. 데게 동바니 범제 아니 동데라 미그베다. 아니 뇨모디제 방도데 다 미그바디 믹사 딜라믹 아니 가야또야 가르도스나 따뜻갑디 동반이 떠그라 다 돈이 떠고 잠마데 돈이 무슨도 떠고로다 샤고다 들어봐
오케이
돈이 무슨도 떠고로데게 아니 짐복군다디제 춘다 제야게 그거 말아와 마세 아니 거기 라 미제베 최전데 사면데 님도라 매우스샤다 한다
So then let's look at our focal object, the contaminated aggregates subject to clinging vis-a-vis the true sufferings of that first noble truth. And we're focusing on them. And we're focusing on them with the wisdom consciousness realizing emptiness. So therefore our object of abandonment are these afflicted states of the aggregates. But we're going to abandon them at the intellectual level initially. So what's happening is they're contradictory by mode of apprehension. So you have they're directly contradictory by mode of apprehension. So not only is it a mind realizing emptiness, but it is a mind directly realizing emptiness, and that contradicts the contaminated aggregate, the truth of suffering first focal object.
다 디레르와다 당기가서 디리아를 인데지 가서 그래. 단다당서 동니레 동니 무슨도에 파셔. 동니 또 동니를 거지 차베이네. 동니 있으니지 유나 매나 템좀지 사베이네. 아니 짐바 망고지 뇨로 두고 여러와.
Yeah. So leave aside the notion of directly realizing emptiness, just even to get a kind of intellectual meaning and to doubt, oh, is that the case or not?
다 단단 언제 시에디 장주 셈베 장생 통람 계직 당보저로
Yeah, I guess.
어디 계직식이 요레스타 단단 언제
Where we are where the bodhisattvas get that first insight on the path of seeing, the first direct perception of reality.
당제 장주 셈베 유연된을 주도치고 요레
So we're kind of wanting to get on board with the bodhisattvas, we're wanting to share with them.
다 고섭 된대로 신내 야고 요레스
These are good things to gossip about.
너다 장주 셈베 유연된데 요르데 말해서 고섭 더르시래도
Yeah, so the bodhisattvas' minds are like that, like 1 and 2. What do you think?
너고 그거 편도 전부 열어.
How much benefit would that be if we could gossip about that?
죄송하다. 다디 반단데 바제멜랑게 아니 바제멜랑게 통반 반단게 지 여러 단 먼저 디셰도 잡이나 먼저도 냠냠매위다 셰카고로 차고 열어 봐. 다 빼셔요. 빼시. 구마 강바직날로 구마 요체当我们别的宁波来多了，别宁波son在的，别宁波确实些个了，我们看过这了，过度水天爬家了，顶上那过度是爬住住了，这别的大这个要么啦，过度是去接的，那过爬家去了，过度接的多呀，过接的多，过接的看过宁波的了多，看过宁波就是别的了，看过的那了古马是有的是了，那古马的干了呢，同伴的宁波去是吧？ 인지군다 통바디 임바 차셔 다 먼저 구마세니데 바제면은 임바라 차셔로
Right, so let's look at an example what's being abandoned in order that one gets this uninterrupted path. Are these paths of seeing abandonments for the bodhisattva? But we really have no experience of that where we are. So let's look at an example. The example is quite old. Let's say you have a house and a thief has entered the house, and the only way to enter, in the olden days, in those days the doors were like revolving, like not slider, but like that type of thing, where there's this push me, pull you, if you will. So then the object of abandonment, the intellectual grasping at true existence, is likened to the thief. Yeah, these doors are in India, they go like that, like Gishla's hands. Yeah, Tibetan doors are kind of flat, they only go one way, but Indian doors would go like that.
So
let's say the uninterrupted path is the police seeking the thief.
Police are
going to check out for the thief.
Police the Konala Yazudura.
Yeah.
Police the Yazud, Kuma the Shije, Martin Order.
The minute the police step in the door, the thief gets afraid and does a runner.
That coaching the police Yazud, chicken Martin Order, Kuma Martin Order. Now,
the time when the police entered the premises and the thief exited is a split second. It is just like that.
The police yard now,
once the police are in, the door is closed.
Now,
once the door is closed, you have a liberated path. A path of release.
Liberated
in the sense that once the thief leaves, cannot return. I think that example is quite beautiful, no? We might think that the time frame between these two paths, uninterrupted and liberated paths, is long. It's not. It's very incremental. Short.
디그 남샤디라 당봉을랑 저 대신 좀더서는 틱셰비네 야고요. 디따디네가 전부로 방어는 상물로 유모 방에 치디다 검색을 열어라.
Yeah, and it's good to kind of have a kind of picture in our minds of this type of meditative equipoise because we're going to be doing it.
먼저 되게 반자단 년부터니 현지민내가 인라로와.
Yeah, well,
현직디 투즈직을 내두고요.
what's being said then is in such a meditative equipoise, those two minds, one which is in contradictory mode of reality and the other one which is valid, can't abide simultaneously on the same mind stream. Continuum.
Pena nima wese shawa mumba patibruda.
Yeah.
Otinashi beshareda.
The example would be the sun's rays dispelling darkness cannot be together.
Ta nganzu simla ta mumba mantade nime wese yawa.
Now our minds tend to be shrouded in darkness. Where's the light in our minds?
제가 문번 나고나라 아니 잘라 통고 말아와다 미시 몽버사데 빼대하고 싶더라.
Yeah, in darkness one cannot see the phenomena, the things. It's such a good example.
제가
You're benighted.
간식군은 문번 된좀신 스탠다드 되나라. 로비니게 저자베 최저 그런데래. 간식군은 문번 된좀신 코베당는 도와준지 tension 된다. 세대로와 간식군은 문번 된좀신 제가 또 좀 된대지. 아니 문번 탐제 좀 버제샤스데 문바티게 매우스샤스데 좀 된데 셈나라 배 외세데 샤송로 제가 외세라데 셈지란시 외세세데 틱데 배 고주도 하러
As it says in the teachings, the darkness is dispelled by the light. The darkness of confusion. So Vasubandhu comments that Lord Buddha cleared away the darkness of unawareness, and then whose mind is in the nature of clear light. So really, when you talk about the mind's final mode being clear light, this is it.
제가 단다 디 당기 디 셰브나시 다 파제면란다 남들람사데 두스 냠샤 튠질라나 로샤가요로.
Yeah, so when you hear of these two paths, one being an uninterrupted path and one being a liberated or path of release, that is obtained in the one equipoise, the one sitting.
제가 투즈 튼두 시우지가 나라야 로샤고요. 디 세부 시우지를 빼는 당봉연라 단다 이 지라마게 계제세단 딩ing조에 당보셈나라 샤야라고 저와 건조 가르스나 산제지 수분데 독대레 빵자레라고 요래. 디 당보딜라고 요. 건조 산제 수분데 수분보데 빵자레스라고 요래.
Yeah, and there are examples to help us understand the notion of these two paths in one meditative sitting. From the point of view of the Vaibhashikas, they would say that the Buddha's body is contaminated and is an object of abandonment.
건조 좀전 가르라면데 먼저 단당하는데 풍부데 레뇽 중으로 좀 된데 이제 통맥을 풍부데 레뇽 중된 요지레스로.
Right, so let's look at our aggregates. The reason they give us that our aggregates are the maturational result of calm and disturbing emotions. And initially, Buddhas would be too.
그런데 좀 된데 곰자 아니 총람 톱 저도 아니 종람네 아니 다 동이 튼지스기도 받을라 냐바샤가 여러와 근데 내 동이 튼지스기 종람 쳐줘네 아니 냠샤 튼지라와 냠샤 튼지스도 다 딜라다 곰자딘 치그나는 로샤다 근데 냠샤 튼직스야 되셔서 튼직스단 딜라다 줘봐 여러다 줘봐 가시에게 다 냠샤 튼직 레멘도 스르와 다디 튼망고 냠샤레 냠샤 포드 냠샤 망보도 세야로 같은 내용이에요 다디 간다 냠샤 튼지스야 돼 누스 제제다 저들과 좀 된데 동바 상제인데 판다시베 세워정에 쇠라 düdü로 쇠라야다 참 뭐만 나고 셔도 dü 발제도 파dü 아니 chen 공들라 아니 냠바르샤네 냠바르샤 아니 토란스리다 저 주룩 샤갈라버들라 토란스 거다 정에 삼다 주룩이 샤갈라베 참들라 토란 맞아와 디네가들라 아니 산제성으로스 제산데 베나 추주 등산로 도와이나 추주 구워절라다 냠바샤르 냠바샤제 솔라 두두 추두 파제디게 다 냠샤징안에 세로고요. 아니 공라 냠바샤스도는 두디게 두사도는 베 셈바 시워지가나 대샤로. 근데 내가 장주 공원도 돼야 되니 다 추주 베나 주저 시바도 아래 주저 시바 숨도 제가 예연도와 토랑라고 요래. 지상 언제디 저와 디네지기 요러와. 지상 토랑 맞아 봐. 지상 답변은 추주 구원에
건다에
건다 추주 저와 중에 추주 구원에 쇼베 추주 시바 바로라네 추주 가도 추주 추주 된지도 와.
야
추주 된지지 나라 다 디게 상마드네 러시아다 간다. 토람디 냠바샤 토람네 남들남체 디네 냠샤나라야 야다 공람기체 공람딜라 사주림 바저라 디게체 독스체네 야다 단데 지라메 샤단체네 독스체네 지단다레 추주 듄지지나라 야다
yes the 상말라체
디게 도사르다 제가 추주 듄지지나라 도샤르다 간다
kisla 추중하던 추축스네 케칙마
말 pöze jonga
ala 15th 16th
pönda shive sewa jonga
yeah I get it so yeah from the Vaibhashika's point of view you know it is the fact that you know Lord Buddha would have you know gone into meditative equipoise and is like a bodhisattva traversed the path or gone in on the path of accumulation, then on the path of training, the mind would have been fixed on emptiness by means of a generic image, but then that would have slowly been subdued and gotten straight into the path of seeing directly. Because we talk about you know, there's a big debate here around this Vaibhashika's point of view, but some say this all took place in the 15th of the 4th month during the 3rd watch of the night. But then some say it took place over a series of meditative equipoises. But if you take the point of view that it took place in one sitting, it is quite possible, just as was mentioned, to traverse these initial paths, to go in, for example, at 9 p.m. and slowly, when you enter into that meditative equipoise vis-a-vis these first paths, everything is dark, isn't it? And then is dark in the sense that you are subduing the maras, and then slowly as you get closer to 4 a.m., which is that 3rd watch of the night, you are traversing the sequential paths of seeing. You know, you're getting like an uninterrupted and a liberated path, then you're going into the path of meditation with its 10 bhumis and so forth, until in a sequential way you reach Buddhahood. So that is possible in one sitting. No. Yeah, so one can see how in just a short time frame that is there. Yeah, what's really being said is that the time frame between these two paths of uninterrupted and liberated are just tiny moments.
고마자 공부 루덴데 지거래서 산제 루덴데다 독den에 반자레스 라고요로.
Yeah, and so they would have gone into that meditative equipoise without that understanding of tantra and seeing that those aggregates are contaminated, no?
다 파진대와기로 단다다 티진라 샤운데 규파르지메 대와 대부도지 대와서 파진대와다 나람니 샤고요로. 샤운데 규 파르지메 대와 파진라 Right, but
if we look at it from the point of view of the paramita vehicle and the maturational vajra vehicles, on a causal level, then we wouldn't say Buddha's body is in the nature of contamination.
다 데네 칸레오나 카르차르 산제 글르네 두데 마임가 두데 임바데 찬심 솔람 졸람 내가 두데 임바데 두데 마임바 가자이네 찬심 통람 계직 당보 단다 동ning 무슨도 돈이 파제면란데 내가 될 타그란라 아니 딜루디 ngāgi sākjē yulu, di sāngmē yulu, yīgirānshin yulu, sāngmē yulu
di
chāsāngā
gyūgirwa.
gyūrvaris.
Okay, so how do we say that on a causal level then in terms of di sangaki kechirwa?
Ngā pachintikwa.
Oh yeah, from the point of view of the Paramitayana vehicle on a causal level, we wouldn't say Buddha's body is in the nature of two sufferings contaminated, because whilst the bodhisattva may have entered into that path of accumulation, but on the path of seeing, when they get that uninterrupted path, the first moment, the contaminated aggregates change into an uncontaminated mental body, which is in the nature of light, which is free from contamination.
그래서 티젠기 랑마데 저런데 싱그러와 솔람 졸람 통람 고람 밀람데 싱그러와.
Yeah.
통람사데 돈잉 웃음데 동배 단다 파제멜람사도 나니 단다 거니 파제멜람라 데레다.
Right. So yeah, what we're talking about, you all should be familiar with the 5 paths in terms of the Mahayana vehicle, isn't it? Accumulation, training, seeing, meditation, no more learning. So we're talking about an uninterrupted path at the level of the path of seeing.
다 될 투어지요. 투어 가려라데 아니 다 존람디 르덴디 두데레 베나 탄다 티징 룰라와 진테베 룰라 티징 존람다 존람 르덴디 두데라레 다 존람 최저네 아니 냠샤 찍라 돈용 웃음도 돈람 바제멜람디 샤서레 디네갑델라 르디 상메 율 두데 많이 바차서다.
Right. So then
가레차레 투어레다.
My question comes then, the initial bodhisattvas aggregates when they're on the path of training are contaminated according to the Paramitayana vehicle, but when they go into equipoise on the path into the path of seeing and cultivate an uninterrupted path, then the aggregates cease to be contaminated. How does that work?
다디 난당도 셈제래야 학산답에 셈제 있으니지요. 학산답에 셈제사데 사탕문에 샤고.
And here we can substantiate this by saying that there is an exceptional mind generation at the first bhumi called the mind generation of exceptional resolve.
제단 학산답에 셈제기 떡기 나가 사제디게디 타송레스다.
Okay, so when we talk about laksam, superior resolve, by the power of that bodhicitta resolve, the contaminations, eliminated.
돈이 무슨 떡고 잠지 사제 류들 규르투고면도 와라. 나라 년도 통남도 돈이 무슨 떡으로 떡이어와. 규르투고면도 왔다. 잔주게 셈 학산타고 셈제세도 믹스게 셈다. 제단 사탕본에 가서니 랑게 류 짐바다니지 때로지 내주하게 그랑아 류 짐바다 믹 짐바다로서 라위는 안저 시기도 와라. 다 대답에 가고요. 다 셈나라데 쇼지가 셈제 신지 된지야라다 배때 가서 그래. 수수 된래 하거라지 따야게 셈도 학삼세 내용을 제단 디독에 소남 납치 뭐 쉐제 사도 소남 디독지 아니 사제가 차디게 다송을 해서다 디 대시자다한테 파진테고 대시자다다 사제 상미 주다 딜레 하고 자사요 말다 다가나래다 딜레 하고 자요 말다.
Okay, so then we could say that just the wisdom consciousness realizing emptiness alone is not enough to get rid of that contaminated aggregate, because the hearers, the middling realizers of enlightenment cannot do such a thing. It is by the power of bodhicitta, the power of this exceptional resolve, this exceptional bodhicitta, that the bodhisattva can destroy the contaminations. For example, in terms of generosity, on that first bhumi, if someone says, give me your eyes, give me your body, they're so delighted to do that. They have the courage to do that. And it is the waves of merit that are vast, by having that courage that allows the destruction of the contamination to take place. Now, this is as far as one can go from the explanation of the perfection vehicle. That is it.
제가 난당한저 chanju 쌤 공배 편 제가 디인디온저 chanju 쌤 간저 가되어 있는데 그는 이 chanju 쌤 그는 저 공제거도
Yeah.
간저 개와디 다 소남 랍첨보지 사야치도 소남디 랍첨보 유나 아니 디고다로 여러다 봐.
This is why we are always encouraged to motivate with bodhicitta. It is because of the vast waves of merit, the non-virtues are purified.
chanju 쌤 깨직직 계획의 편 소남디 편디다 될 년도 다좀바 베 잠블링 칸딘 조나신 잠블링 미 빌렌 베 년도 다좀바 빌렌 둥게 아니 니마직 동니 공배 개와대다 chanju심 깨직직 공배 개와되니 소남책이나 단다 chanju심 깨직직 집에 소남디 소남 망어 예송도.
Yeah, it is said, isn't it, that one moment reflecting on bodhicitta outshines the hearer's reflections, billions of world systems of moments on their equipoise. Just one moment of bodhicitta outshines that.
자잔 학생들의 심지체 근데 내 상매 이기란 신기 루사직다 쟤네 아니 도스체는다 야 산제살도다 뭐지 셰러다 간다디 냠샤네 파진테고라나 다 냠샤네 그래서야디 티베시직다 산제당 림바디 텔엘하고 세워 요마라 파진테고라 요마라다.
Right, so this is how we would explain the progression to Buddhahood from the point of view of the perfection vehicle, going from meditative equipoise to meditative equipoise, independence upon the uncontaminated mental body they have accomplished.
다단다 nga nang khala yon sen tis lapshana the bijin ya jik kodero shena ya goyongoro jingne sonam saya da ni ne ani da ona zo sanje se de khandes ki gi me se de kodero ma cha na na ne kagu chagrara.
It might help to talk a bit about it from a tantric perspective in terms of imprints, merit. And really, we can't really talk about Buddhahood unless we're looking at it from a tantric perspective.
다 단다 디 nga da chuna nga wan top ne wandu khalam tamji tomba song ani lam jirim kom da zorim ne gala jirim da nga le chaju ne jo lami ju diya da ju di shi na lami ju di mi shi ji de sanje komba tab du dan de nga ge chaju de na la sanje dang rim ba cha da ji she tu ge yo ma ra.
Right, so first, for this to occur, one has to have empowerment, commitments given, commitments guarded and kept, following the advice, and then going through the commensurate generation stages and so forth. Here we're talking about of the 4 types of Tantra. Action, performance, is it? Is performance? Yeah, action, performance, yoga, and highest yoga tantra. Here we're talking about highest yoga tantra, the 4th one being the means.
Tamasumdi sanje dan rimba chadanje yomaresra.
Yeah, because if we look at the first 3 levels of tantra, what they don't have is the complete path to Buddhahood.
Da dan lami nang la che ndu ni ngazo sim tamusa ji yung sim tamusa che ge yorwa. Da
But when we look at highest yoga tantra, we start talking about the most fundamental or subtle clear light mind, and we have to get that into our brain.
다 된대게 융심 참모디 니야 내가 구제로 단당한서 심 라과 양원도 주나 심 참모 내가 구토고요 말에 심 참모 내가구나 심 라과 내가 라슈 가르 디니 겨워래 다 디니 렌지 미네가로래.
Right. So then, okay, so in order for this to happen, one has to actualize, manifest, and put the subtle clear light mind to work. Without it, you can't get rid of these gross levels of mind. Those 2 will be exactly contradictory, isn't it?
대단하다. 심 참모디 야 롱심 참모세 용매 심 참모디 야 내가 곰제베다고 laga gujerwa an dege chanju simgo kunzo chanju simgo ki tegeng ane 동이 또 연대 동이 튼지지 또 연대 저런 그 세멘타도 배우 세세도 더고 여러러
yeah. Now the bodhisattva is utilizing the subtle wind and mind, and at that initial level, having already generated bodhicitta, focusing on emptiness in terms of a generic image, is going for the exemplary clear light.
다든데게 네 세멘 동이 튼지지 되베 심 동이 도니 심 참모래 심 라고 말해요. 지자 심 참모데 동이 튼지지 또 든데게 동이 튼지지 또베 심디 솨버지 롱웨세서 롱싱 오지샤고로
त्यसको लुङदाङ सेमनी हो
롱심닝 오직도 못하대.
So then, of course, here the practitioner of the bodhisattva is utilizing the subtle mind and focusing on emptiness in terms of its generic image, and joining the subtle wind and mind as the two isolates of the one entity.
든데게 니 롱웨생아와디 녜렌체 심글렌지체니 아니 루이치로고요. 델라야다 마타베 줄루세드레다.
Yeah, 롱세드라기스나.
아.
त्यसको 마탁베 줄루기 녜랭기 규카샤.
롱 단데 돈이 튼지지 도베 심지여와 되게 솨버지베 롱웨생아바세드레.
त्यसको 마탁베 루 문두규 like
녜랭기데 세멘타도 배웨세 솨버지베 롱웨생아바세드레.
세네.
세멘타도 라나데 당게 심 참모고 돈이 튼지지 돈이시도.
Yeah.
어디래.
Right, so the direct cause then of the impure illusory body is those, subtle wind and mind focused on emptiness.
다 딘데기 딜 마다베 줄루체 다 디네 양자 줄루바 되게네 돈이를 검잡인데 네 롱심 참모 돈이 든지지 또버데 돈이 무슨 도르데 아니 나가 돈람 더고요다 돈람 바제면은 되래다.
And then the meditator meditates again and again and again on emptiness with that impure illusory body state, and then due to the habituation, slowly one starts to get that more subtle level of wind and mind, sangha. Yeah, and the result of utilizing the subtle wind and mind focused on emptiness, one gets the path of seeing. Yeah, and then that becomes the the Kazagisla the Shipa nang la chok the tuba dirabadi. Shipa said.
Rimba said, Marie. Living aven semen gulu says I did it. Rimba said. Tishego. Dear Rimba said, Living aven semen gulu says, Living aven semen gulu says.
Lubensana?
Lubens Lu Tameg Nambole Embadero. Semen said, Sem Tameg Simle Emba. Aven and Tanda did it, and some Casore. Aven Sementa to baby said, Livero. Living aven Sementa to baby says, and Semen said, and the name Matabe Julice. And it can you say that?
So then the 4 stages: body isolation, mind isolation, the impure illusory body we mentioned, which is the union of the subtle wind and mind focused on emptiness, and then shipadi. And the 4th one is when, excuse me, the subtle wind and mind are directly realized emptiness. So it becomes definitive clear light realization. Yeah, so that is the uninterrupted path of Tantra, the path of seeing.
Tadi Panjapatan de Tangi Gopajab Sujab said Tile Jan Savreda. De Pelogarda.
Cosa?
당기 가서 디 구마 야 준와 디 파진 대베기 님부 반자 반단데와 하다 nga di bedloga rosarda.
So as you know, we gave that example of the two paths, the uninterrupted path and the liberated path, in terms of the revolving door and the thief. Well, that's more like the perfection vehicle, but the approach just mentioned the tantric one different to that.
지난다 당기게 디 돈ning 웃음도 셈타모 돈ning 웃음 돈이 들은 버시워 된지에서 되게 셴버죠 롱we 생각이 년len체 아니 셈글린지 체제 야 줄류 당인데 탁외 줄류 스타디 남들람데
So then utilizing the subtle mind and wind focused on emptiness to initially get an impure illusory body, then a pure one. That pure one is the liberated path of the two, uninterrupted. Yeah, namdolam. Right, so now what's been abandoned at that level are the afflictive obscurations.
아니 데 남들람데 뉴디빵 바탕 아니 단다 디네가블라 가르다고 그래서나 빵바 송죽서야 돼 더고였다.
Ale, the union.
탁배 줄류서야 더고다. 탁배 줄류 되리다.
Right. So what?
뉴디 다하러다.
Okay. So the pure illusory body is called thus because the afflictions have been abandoned. You get a liberated path, and you get the union of abandonment. Yeah.
당에 단다디 가르치고 올라빈디. 먼저 내가 나라 심 코월 제니디 코월 겨울에 가래. 무슨 잘못 들어와 먼저. 마 시르디 겨울심을 돈이한테 가래. 심 잘못 들어와.
Yep.
심 잘못이 다 레레기 되제 겨울에로 요러다. 당가라 코월 겨울에 심 코랑 람라야 제셔다. 로샤도 아니 코와디란 슈기 가르고 있다. 믹스해시 차르고 있다.
Right, so let's look at it from a tantric perspective. It is a subtle mind that either attributes cyclic existence or not, attributes a path, and really what we're talking about is being able to utilize the subtle mind to manifest a path. Yeah, so whether you further into cyclic existence or not.
제가 나가는 도단도 세부시 차용도. 근데 내야 로바타의 된지에서 로바타의 된지 셈진지 유지 셈 타마 돈닝스데 뒤 숑버지에 롱 생각에 년len체 아니 셈글린지 체도 산제 고마토로고요. 다 제가 ngala sanje dange dodan rimba dige ta wesengo di gyudan da dige di chazan da be gebo shobjo ta de zurig dozo wa madamni la ta jidan dan nge she de chazan dan da di inje la shidan jidan wa madamni la she chog me la go yoro ine da chran zo la da she shan de gyonje yi maro nyewe na ke marda chu she ni mil nyewe na
gisla simchen gi gyu tamad tichik layamba
로바타의 된지에서 있는데 셈진주지 셈 뉴스 타셔져요. 당기대다 윤리 방사들 타고 줄려 차송아 이나 시디 방요 말아. 다 시디 방에게 네 셈 타모 돈닝스도 로디 체데 디 숑버지에 셈진주지 셈 타모 되게 년년 롱데 년년체 셈글렌지 체온데 네 산제지 롱구야 당도 요로 산제지 롱구 년년 조데 가르스는 아주 셈진주지 셈 계직 탐에게 숑버지에 롱we 생각하더래. 제장은 저 산제도 절류 두고도 절류사데 왜 생각하더라고. 데리다.
Right, so then we're talking about the most subtle state of the most subtle state of the mind and wind and the sentient beings continuum. So then in that sense, that pure illusory body that the sentient being has actualized and has abandoned, remember, just at this level, afflictive obscurations, not the subtle obscurations that prevent, that us need to be abandoned to become a Buddha. That's the direct cause for the Buddha's utility body. Kasa. Jalu, rainbow body, what?
The cook looking in lung de la Vesenga, was a Kamashi, Vesenga, the Yoinza. And the 5 of the lineage stage door.
Yeah.
The Vesenga de Halatangi in the Vesenga de Nala. What in the year, and a jealous do tender. And me Nagnam Lynching you to the 100 Jasugudwa. To the good Jadido, the Subug and Shina and the turn we are Yachadan, Lu Jalu Trueris, Pumbura will never child rather than the young digger. That is all this Duschan young we are rather young good one.
The practitioners that, let's say, manifest or actualize the rainbow body, where the gross aggregates are dissolved. So then the rainbow body really, the lights, the 5 lights therein relate to the 5 wisdom dhyanis, the 5 dhyani Buddhas that are attributed.
당에 단대 저런 데 라이다 가서는 줄루세지 도 돈이 심 참보게 돈이 또 tunjusuji to tege shombajo lo sengwe nyelen che tege ane ya lu du byang grimba she de gulu tak madagwe gulu du da takwe gulu du da she ane dene tuzo ya khwa chabe na gulu la khwa chabe na ta dinde ji do samsam simji lewe na ane phajin tebe kejin thangme jig so dene zagwe lo sonam so 지상 sonam shoji sagwe so da sonam de sabe tobge ne thonam ni negab de nyundi pang to do de garesna ko de ko na gyulu lo khwa cha ba da gyulu ge jege ni sonam shoji sagi yo inza de tobge ne thonam ni negab la nyundi pang nga thonam negab la nyundi pang to go yoro de ge nenga de re so ga da
So from a tantric perspective, why this is being explained to us, you're only really supposed to explain it to those that have had empowerments, but I don't think there's much fault in terms of us hearing it. The merit is so great. Why I've been talking about the illusory body, focused on a generic image of emptiness in terms of the causal and resultant states of that illusory body becoming a utility body, be it impure or pure as you go through the stages, is that by hearing about it and knowing about it, the power of merit is so great in the context of Tantra that you can accumulate enough merit to abandon the obscurations on the path of seeing the first level of afflictions. Dirwa. Lapchimpa.
Tadi jil jime da jaranzo lobjon chiya la tang tanan chiya tang tangbo tanyen chiya la pendo yunguro ba di shen she yin sirwa.
Yeah, so I think that, latterly, if you have interest in it, if you want to study it, it will be of benefit to us.
Tadi ne tanda di ta tonlam tadi sewuro bichi chazo kazana tonlam gudwa dan paje melam sedi. A tsini she di rang ngoge ge panja juwa asi. Ta rang ngoge panja judan di ta gyajambu redwa.
I hope that's clear in terms of the path of seeing and the uninterrupted path, particularly the direct antidote. What is being directly antidoted?
Dana ngoge la winde bena da phungbo lu saje nyulen bo phungbo deme do we lo di da tungni phungbo deme la migwe donyu ngosun do we lo di gi ne phaje melan che de ngoge gi phungbo demba zeme dinzi kunda de da ko ni migwe je le me zindang ngoge cha do da.
Right, so then what's directly contradictory by mode of apprehension is the mind that directly realizes the non-self of the aggregates on the one hand, and the aggregates that are being clung to as being truly existent intellectually on the other. Yeah, so we can see that in the definition. An uninterrupted path is an uncontaminated exalted wisdom. We've talked about uncontaminated previously, haven't we? Let's go again. Gu ngo trebo. A younger chiksunana.
Judy gewa gombe dole de chunga gewa gewa cheo. Ngodi ene chipe 가서래 람지 뭐니 냠보체니 페페조라 뇨모다 마데바 뇨모다 무슨 마데바 람나 코디아메도
Di ya chu. Di ma se kran ya gong peo marwa.
테마 데이터한테 데블레 거다
Ale ho.
다 데블이 가려네 아니 콜라밍니 차소 뇨모 페야메 거다
Right. So now, when we have uncontaminated, exalted wisdom, we can talk about that in terms of three attributes: cause, entity, and result. On a causal level, it is. Ale tangbo gyu se di?
규디 개와
Yeah, on a causal level, because it is a path, it is directly contradictory to its antithesis.
개와군
Yeah,
어
yeah. In terms of entity, ale gewa dang mi gewa se.
개와 공발 레 개와 공발 되는 총으로 개외도 총으로
Oh, sorry, that's wrong. So the first one, the cause, is because it's manifested out of virtue. The second one is that entity is that it's completely not sullied or mixed with affliction. That's its nature. And finally, the result is that, the afflictions cannot increase as a result of it.
다 이제 다 특히 코디워셔나 삭 means the 뇨모 매버서 걸다 삭버서야 돼 뇨모라 봐 삭제라도 뇨모다 제와 상매에서도 뇨모다 마제와 뇨모다 마제와 뇨모 어디래다
Yeah, essentially what it's saying is it's completely free of affliction, isn't it? Because when you talk about uncontaminated, affliction is no more.
이제 봐주면은 진이지 다들라 단답값들라 시샤도가 다들라 뒤다 남들랑 직시해잖아 랑오게기 아니 응원이 랑게 응어기 년래 근데 제가 응어기 년래 주가를 남들랑 응어기 년래데 봐주면은 되래 그런 냠샤 튠질로 도샤고로
Yep.
응원이도 주 봐주면은지 응어게기 디발에 트여봤다 그 단대 당기나시 마잡대라고
Yeah.
마잡잡잡잡잡 다 마디 제가 토번이나 아니 다디 제디 매워서 내가 넘버 2 봐서 디나시 어디래 뭐게 디월레 트베 냠샤이시 남들랑 생이래도
Right, so then we're going to go through the liberated path definition. An exalted wisdom and meditative equipoise that's liberated from the corresponding object of abandonment of the uninterrupted path, that is its direct substantial cause. So remember, direct substantial cause here is the uninterrupted path, isn't it? Because this is taking place in one sitting of meditative equipoise. So the military fights. The country is overcome and liberated. It is like that, free from the corresponding object of abandonment.
이게 구마를 고잡대 야고도
Yeah.
고잡는 구마야 주세요 말아
I like the analogy of the thief being expelled, the door is closed, can no longer return.
마마 안저 된다 기행 티디 일단 파제멜라 남들 식디 코카고 로라 샤카고도 알아 아니 고들라 아니 야라 자가 고들레라 아니 고야 게야 고야라 고마자
Ale dinashidera. When we first were taught this in class, it was really hard to get our minds around these two paths of uninterrupted and path of release. But then our teacher got up and opened and closed the door to show us what it was literally like.
Yeah. Is 어디래 나디네 딜라야 네 단다갑 딜라 시샤도 나디래 뎀바실라 이러봐 뎀바실라 다 동해 통방 군중 통방 고보 통방 남 통방 시제 뎀바실라 미게 아니 통방 시용고요로 디 통방 시딜라 응원이 바제면라 시용고로 아니 남들랑 시지 제용고로 다시 단 거로
Right. So then they're going to be. Why does it say that there are four corresponding? Because, for each of the four truths, there are four uninterrupted paths and four liberated paths, and four make 8 to each of the respective Four Noble Truths.
다디마 이어로 즉 체나야 제 주룩 차고요 바제면랑 제다 남들랑 제로
Yeah, so then you get, if you take it with the Four Noble Truths, each having, I have to go back here, I guess.
지도요래. 되발라 바자멜람시 남들람시 게 수수민이 dombe.
Leon, sorry, Gisela, now I get it. Yeah, yeah. We can then understand this in the context of the three realms, because if you take the desire realm, for each of those four truths, there are like 4 uninterrupted paths, and 4 paths of release make 8. For the desire realm, and then the form and formless realm are taken together. Because in a nangshen pangro agisla. Suktam sukminila.
Suktam sumini
Karichane nyamduduna.
Chiktarosana kuni ne nyamshaga sawa chikbaraba kuni.
Right, and because the mode of abandonment in meditative equipoise is similar for the form and formless realms, objects of abandonment, they are taken as one. So then for each of the uninterrupted paths and paths of release, for those 2 upper realms make 8. So therefore you have 16 paths altogether with regards to the 3 realms.
어디 님벨 남스는 다 도르도지 드네 타지단디 제버셔나 살람가나라 제버슈지 통고요로 이거.
Right, so this is just a very essential explanation of paths of abandonment, and in the text of grounds and paths it is vast. Any query?
Just one that came from our discussion group just regarding the exam. One of the questions was, what are the 8
yes.
somethings? Anyway, with this 8 on page 53 and 8 on page 63 from different schools, we weren't sure if we wanted to do Buttercup 8 or the autonomous school 8.
Is that question was the first question, no?
No, it was the second last question actually.
Can you read it out, Follower?
Yeah, it was the second to last one. For the absorption of cessation, there are 8 divisions.
That's it.
Yeah.
You got it. So it's actually on page 63. I've just flicked it.
But no, look on page 53 as well. There's 2 different versions.
Are they both 8 though?
Yeah, they're both 8, and one is page 53 is the Vaibhashika school. 63 is the autonomous school.
So Gisla Manzo Yewa Gayurwa Pina Kari Kola Kokpa Yila Cheba Kanzaki, Yila Cheba Kandas Kokparwadi. Timijawa JJ Urwa, Chikla Vaibhashika, Chikla Rangyupa, Kari Tula Gores, Tinika Nangla. Tini Nangle Kari Gores. Chikla Chetamawa, Chikla Oma Rangyupa.
Kizani Karidan Tang Ranjuba Timba.
Yeah.
Ranjudra.
Yeah.
Ranjuba do you go?
Yeah, I'll go for the middle way autonomous.
They don't give 8 in the middle way autonomous.
Oh, then. Then you wouldn't be questioning the question, would you?
Oh no, okay, middle way autonomous. Okay, that's page 63 then.
So the one with the person enters it towards the
ground
which it is supported, that one?
Yeah, page 63 is
subject.
Yeah, because the subject call it catches you. Yeah, Omarangupa.
The Kaseva Chidama, the Kaseva, the Kaseva, the Junction.
Yeah, let's probably go for the Vaibhashika because it's kind of clearer. Probably better to go for page 53.
Now we're on page 50, so page 53 is the right answer.
Yep.
Okay, say that on the
on the recording, page 53 for this question, because it's clearer according to the Shravaka or Hira school.
Let's finish now. Your question?
Any other questions about the exam?
Yeah, that's okay now. You don't have question, no? Yeah,
well, I had one question.
Yeah.
It's like earlier in this class we were saying that to go from the uninterrupted path to the range of paths, this can happen in one sitting in one cushion like that.
Yeah.
And that Gisela was saying that it's quite quick but yeah, on our charts it says it takes 3 countless great eons to traverse. Once you've realised that there's 3 countless great eons to get to the 8th round.
From which path to which, Philippa?
I'll just get my chart out. It goes from path of seeing to the 8th round.
Jepa, sa
Countless
Jepa.
eon, and then another countless eon in the last 3 paths. Anyway, 1 countless eon seems a lot longer than a few minutes.
Okay, I think Gisela probably got the questions. Let's repeat it for the online people. It was mentioned during the class that the period between the uninterrupted path and the liberated path can be quite brief, vis-a-vis one meditative equipoise or one sitting, quite quick. And yet, in the charts, when we look at them in terms of the progression, for example, from the path of seeing to the 8th ground, we're looking at 1 countless great eon, and the latter bhumis, the pure bhumis, 8 to 10, another great countless eon. Isn't that a contradiction? That's the question, isn't it? Yeah. Dini chachikla gisla bachimelang namdo lamla du kasa nyam chachikla tu tung tung dabse che tugerwa ninang nganzo
깨진 담에 섬들.
어디
제 겨워요 말이야. 되 겨워면 김생 갈랑나 빼나. 깨진 담에 섬 개시 빼때 딸 흘러로지 쟤나 깨진 담에 섬을 내가 대 최고고 요래. 이나야 네 전주 선배 로덥단데 온게 깨진 담에 섬을 내가 대 추주증이 나라 제시하게 요래. 빼나면서 미 수부 야고시라면 이제 네 자타와 이나 메가든 제비나 니마 둔다 찍지던데 거야 근데 미직 수부단 트레이닝 야고 연결지기 추주 시즌하나 차로다. 지고래 어디.
It is not contradictory for the bodhisattvas. Some are doing it in a relaxed manner. But some with great courage can do those countless great eons very quickly, akin to the fact that a less strong body would take a week to do this garden. A strong person can do it in 4 hours.
이거 내가도 집어 찾아야 돼.
Yeah, the work is the same, but one person completes the work a lot quicker than the other.
I think one time some people painting my house maybe nearly took maybe 2-3 weeks slowly. And one time they were very strong 3 or 2 volunteer. I think half day finish. Very fast. Half day finish. Some people take 3 weeks. Did you go to Lega?
Not a contradiction because the same job can take different spans of time. We should dedicate now.
Page 31 for the short mandala.
and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. That has not arisen, arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Created by homage. All these roots of virtue praised as the best. Wish fulfillings are source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, of incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech.
May all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled.
Saviour of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings.
It makes extremely clear the path that is the unification of emptiness and compassion.
For those holy Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech. May all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled.
You who uphold the subdued moral way, who serves the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining and preserving and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels.
Saviour, myself and others, your disciples, please live long.
By relying on the true accumulations of myself and others in the three times, may the teachings of the conqueror Losum Drakpa
blaze for a long time.
Dunda jime di sam hawa dinda wanzu mutuni roshanarwa di ben joja di yagudwa di tip di yagudwa ma da roshana ko
sangiki yendin
ma banje roshana sirwa.
I think it would be good next class Wednesday next year, is it, to continue with the text. It is wonderful to keep studying that.
Manguttu.
No, I mean next
year, no class.
Next year, no.
Okay. Next year, no class. Holiday.
This exam? Oh, I see.
Yeah.